We've got some slow motion shots here. We've got the Vauxhall Chevette here, getting very sideways here on the rally. Managed to hold the first lot, then getting the wrong line for the second part of this corner, and the car going right round there and then heading behind the fence. Here, the Lotus on Track Elise trophy. The front 5 or 6 cars make it down the centre straight safely for the first time of the year. But Greg Noble getting involved in a spin here. A few other cars just in front of him spinning. Photographers being scattered away from the barriers. And lots of people breaking the brand new corner markers here at Snedden. And about 10 Lotuses involved here. Contact here between Tom Sharp and Nathan Freak in the first round of the Ginetta GT Super Cup. Tom Sharp managed to survive and win the race, while Nathan Freak ended up in the gravel trap, but he managed to make his way out. But lots of gravel in the car. He had to get that cleaned out, and he finished last in the class for the race. Renault Clio's here. Contact between Aaron Smith and Luke Wright. Luke Wright being spun right round, and then his teammates, Scuderia Victoria, having to avoid Jack Goff coming through, and then that sent Allison into the gravel, and also Darren Wilson in the gravel there. Here the Ginetta Juniors, again the first few surviving, but contact hover back, which sent Miles Collins into the barriers very heavily. Lots of damage to the car. Wasn't able to get out for the afternoon race. Noel Murray also into the gravel, so about 5 or so cars involved there. Here we see James Dixon getting a tag from the car Jack Goff. James Dixon holding the car with lots of power and lots of lock on the Renault Clio to get it back wherever he wants it to go. Second round, the juniors caused as much chaos at Paddock Hill Bend. Halfway race here, plenty of spinners, including Declan Jones there, and a spin there for Selin Fielden. Here, the Toyota MR2's Alex Lennon running out wide on the first lap, spinning across the circuit. And then look, Michael Wells there, I think, having to lock the brakes up, as many other drivers did have to. And then some cars not seeing it, and spinners. And lots of cars involved here. Massive 32-car grid for the Toyota MR2s. And cars spinning all over the place. Here, the pre-66 Saloons, the Mini here of Christian Devereaux, just running slightly too wide out of power, just kicking up a bit of dust. And then the back end turns round and Barry is right next to the circuit, and then he hits it so hard it lifts the Mini up in the air. And here we have Classic Formula 40,000. Peter Chippendale here having a spin as they exit Coram, the new tighter Coram. Trevor Carvey here locking up in the Capes with Superlights, hitting the grass and going straight on into one of his rivals. And then Trevor Carvey spinning round. Just about majority of the field managed to miss him. Here we've got Nick McBride halfway down the screen. Up in the air he went in his Mygale. And then locking up, just about to stop himself for the corner. And he could continue in the race. Here, Neil Hewson getting out of shape in his Ginetta G40 in a Ginetta Challenge and heading straight towards the barriers. But luckily enough, with the big runoff areas now, the Snetton 300 circuit, he was managed to not to hit anything and rejoin the race. Radical UK Cup here, Terence Woodward and Manho Alice. Manho Alice running into the back of Terence Woodward. Woodward then spun and then and took Alice with him, so both cars in the gravel trap. Here the classic racing cars, and slightly slippery conditions and snapping under braking into the barriers. Here on board with James Abbott, just losing on the wet 30s all over the grass then for McLaren, and just about being able to keep control of the car and only losing very little time. Again here, for a rolling start this is for James Abbott, and people perhaps slowing up too much for some people, and then I think that's James Birch spinning into the concrete pit wall. Andy Cummings just losing on the slightly slippery circuit on slick tyres. Cold tyres as well, I think, for the SR3 there of Andy Cummings and him spinning. Here, David Jacobs, not quite sure why he's so late on the brakes for Druids Hairpin. Here, hitting Roger Bromley, and both of the cars heading to the gravel. Mini challenge. George Allen here made a slow start, and that meant a lot of Constantino in the middle of the pack, and about 4 or 5 wide doesn't go down the bottom straight. And George Allen hitting the barriers hard, as well as Chris Pananutu And then George Allen rolled back into the circuit, which meant Sarah Parsons had to get on the brakes to avoid him. Patrick Mortimer had a spin, as well as Stuart Lyons down there as well. Finley Crocker in the gravel, Dean Raymond having a spin. And I think that's Jason Richardson off as well. Here in the GT Cup, you see Andy Ruin just touched the back of Peter Bamford. That causes the Ferrari 430 to spin right round. And Jordan Whitt in the Chevron, the two rear wings connect, and that causes one of the parts of the wing to fall off for Jordan Wing, and the whole wing for Peter Bamford. Another slow start for George Allen in the second mini challenge race caused another big crash with cars hitting the wall. Now here you see some great car control from Atwater Nils on the grass sideways into Paddock Hill Bend, and then he managed to control the car and still lead his class. And again you see a spin there, I think that's Andrew Bailey. And now the BMW Compact Cup here, a massive sideways moment through Brundle, and holding it nicely was James McIntyre, but Simon Basford tried to copy his late braking but wasn't able to do it and had a spin. Renault Clio's here, 4 wide almost into the Montreal hairpin. Contact between Matt Allison and James Colburn. Then James Colburn spun right into the path of Jack Goff, and then 5th on the grid and 5th into the hairpin, and James Dixon managed to lead out the hairpin as all the top 4 headed off the circuit. Here at the Ginetta Super Cup being led by Nathan Freak. If you look back, all the cars starting Constantine are up in the mid-pack, and Jake Hill in the G50 just touching the back of George Morrows in the G55, which spins him round. Here, the 750 trophy. John Webb having a twitchy moment after Luffield as it started to rain. But then it was Roger Windley that had to spin, and then his car rolled straight into the path of Paul Gorolini. But no contact made. Here, Joe Merchai just getting sideways. He was circling the brakes. The car behind it almost following the gravel, but nice bit of car control in the gravel for Joe Mercer to get his NASCAR styled machine out of the gravel. Here Paul Wilson leading the Caterham Superlight as they head into Goddard, but Jamie Orton there get hit from behind. I think that's JJ O'Malley that hit him, sending his car up in the air. Ginetta challenge here, slick tyres, and it rained on the warming up lap. First of all, Clive Richards off at Hollywood, a few other G40s off as well. Slick tyres for Ginetta G40s. Ron Radcliffe already went off at Redgate, and then the cars headed down the corner curves. Here the Ginetta Juniors, he saw a spin first of all from William Foster at Hawthorns, and off as well went Stenham Fielding. He had nowhere to go and hit into Will Foster heavily. Then the front bodywork there of Sam Fielding come up in the air, so he probably couldn't see where he was going. Contact earlier on between him and Tom Howard. This angle Tom Howard, he wasn't too impressed with it, and then a bit of retaliation on the circuit where he hit Sam Fielding here as they headed down to Westfield. Here, Seth Morris ran a bit wide. Patrick McDragan tried to come up on the inside of it, and they made contact. Seth Morris sideways down the straight, just about managed to hold on to it, but Patrick McLagan hit the barriers. Here for the Toyota MR2s, it's Steve Lumley into Hall Bend sideways. His car spun round. Also, Michael Wells had a big sideways moment. He just about managed to hold his, even though he did take a few corner markers down. And then when Steve Lumley did manage to rejoin, not enough luck on the Toyota MR2, onto the grass, and round it went again. Formula V's here now. John Hughes trying to make it side by side up the Park Straight. Just hit the grass and then hit a massive tank slapper at 100 miles per hour. The car sent to the inside of the circuit, backwards heading towards the circuit. Just about managed to stop the car before onto the circuit. David Ogden here, first of all, having a big slide. Then George Allen had an even bigger slide, couldn't control his one, and he went towards the tyre wall at huge speed. Completely moving the tyre wall away from the barrier. Here Chris Middlehurst being hit by Tom Bradshaw as he stood out wide. Chris Middlehurst sent up in the air and then into the gravel trap. Here the tin tops at Brands Hatch as they head down the Cooper Straight. The safety car has been called. Some don't see the safety car board and they all run into each other. Some cars stopped as they head down to Surtees. And quite a few cars damaged there.